Welcome back, YouTube family. It's Luke here with another astro update. I want to take a close look at Mercury and Mars today, as well as our movement of the sun into Aquarius, and just helping understand what this big sky clock is. Just like a clock on the wall isn't time. We can't look to the clock and say, oh, that's time. That's an indication. It's telling us the time. It shows us the time, but it isn't time. So when we think about astrology from that perspective, it's telling us the time of the evolution of consciousness, and it's helping us understand the different aspects of that consciousness and how we co-create, co-mingle with that. If you're looking primarily just to what's happening above us in the sky and the clock, yes, it can help us understand the time and look at different fundamental or key archetypal energies and help us understand what's going on. Okay, but you always have to, for accurate and personal sort of connection to the grand sort of clock, you always have to look at your own natal chart and how what's happening in the sky is interacting with your natal chart. Because why some people might experience big releasing energy on particular full moons, and other people on exactly the same moon energy might not feel or go through any experiences. And other times there's key astrological alignments happening in the collective, in the clock in the sky, and some people are really profoundly impacted, other people aren't. And that'll be because if we think about your natal chart as helping you understand your soul's evolutionary blueprint, but imagine that you have a set of unique, very specific antennas that are sort of designed in a very specific and unique way to you that pick up and interact with cosmic energy, cosmic conscious energy. And how we understand your unique antenna layout is by looking at your natal chart. And that means that when there's a significant aspect happening in the sky clock, we would look to see if you've got a particular antenna that's going to interact or pick that up. And is it coming through in very harmonious way, or is it coming through in a very discordant way? Is it coming through dysfunction and static, or is it a free flow of that energy? And that can then help you understand what's happening in the sky. And there may be static, tense, powerful, transformative energy happening in the sky. But if it's not coming through in a particular antenna, right, and that antenna is just purely based on your natal chart and natal placement. So where the planets and all the points are within your chart, within your own house system. And that's just basically your blueprint. So what we're looking at to see what's happening in the sky and if it's impacting you personally. And that gives you a much more unique, specific look at how to navigate what's going on, because it may not necessarily impact you personally. And other times it may directly impact you. Like my last video, when I suggested that those born at the end of the cardinal sign and the very beginning of the fixed signs, that cusp, very last degree of the cardinal signs, the first degree of the fixed signs, are about to go through a 2-year period of Pluto either conjunct their sun, opposite their sun, or square their sun. And either way, you're going to have to integrate Pluto energy into your life, whether that's coming through a conjunction and it's coming from within, and the personal transformation that you are feeling empowered to go through, or whether it's opposite and you're actually experiencing this transformative energy in, perhaps key relationships or those that are in opposition to you, or whether it's square and it's going on around you and people are going through their Pluto energy, but it's impacting you directly and it's creating these deep need for change. So at the moment, let's have a look at the sky clock. We have this really funky aspect between Mercury, who's just turned direct after being retrograde for a couple of weeks, just turned direct at the 8th degree of Capricorn, and Mars has only just recently turned direct and still sitting at the 8th degree of Gemini. So when planets are at the same degree, they're connected via aspect. Sometimes those aspects are harmonious, sometimes they are discordant. Sometimes there's ease and flow of the energies. Other times there is challenge and dysfunction. Other times there is a complete lack of connection. And that's what this aspect represents. Mercury, the mind, the intellect, our thought process, perception, our awareness, communication, transportation, navigation. That's what Mercury represents on the clock. It'd be like looking at the hand of a clock and saying, well, that's the hour, that's the minute. Oh, that's the mind. What's the mind doing? Well, Mercury in Capricorn, right, is structured thinking, pragmatic thinking, goal-orientated thinking, thinking about our responsibilities and our obligations, getting, a plan in order, thinking seriously. Capricorn's a very serious sign ruled by Saturn, right? Thinking very seriously. There may be an aspect of fear involved in the thinking from limitation or lack, right? Now, that's where the mind is at the moment for the collective energy. That's what's being integrated. This Mercury retrograde in Capricorn, it's all thinking around that. So it can be really deep, serious, fear-driven, lack mentality, limited thinking. It can be very goal-orientated, ambitious, driven, pragmatic, having a plan, right? What's the next step? Well, when we go to activate or integrate that energy, right, this is just happening on an intellectual basis, the mind, the thought process, we look to the planet of action, Mars, right, the motivation, the desire. Well, Mars is in Gemini, and Gemini and Capricorn don't really resonate with one another. You've got cardinal Earth, right? So Earth, cardinal expression, think of the mountain, right? A mountain, that's why cardinal signs are about projective and outward expression of energy. And in Earth, it's like, well, the top of the mountain. Where do you want to be? At the top. The symbol is the goat. The goat is the animal that gets to the top. The goat goes where only the birds go. So it's all a symbol of goal orientation, public image, recognition, career-driven, and very ambitious energy. Gemini is mutable air, right? It's like the butterfly. The symbol of Gemini is like the butterfly, flitting around from flower to flower, never really resting in one place too long, taking and absorbing information and experience, and then moving and liking that aspect of free and liberation and not really tied down. You've got this air element that's in this mutable expression, which is very, it's like the wind blowing in all different directions. And it likes that. It likes that variety. It likes that difference. Whereas Capricorn is like, let's get serious. Let's get goal orientated. So you got the mind doing that, and the motivation and desire going, hang on a second, I don't want to do that. So what happens when these two energies sort of inconjunct like this? So there's a connection. This inconjunct, this quincunx, this relationship between them is connecting them, but not in a very harmonious way or even a conscious way. So it can be like, for me personally, right, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. And then I go to do it and I miss a step, or I've been doing some home renovation, putting some VJ wall lining on a wall behind a TV. And I spent $180 on the paneling and did a miscalculation and cut it too short. So when I went to put it up, it's too short. So $180. I had to learn the lesson the hard way. Now I knew that this energy was going on, but I'm aware. It doesn't mean that I'm not affected by it. Mercury is retrograding in my first house, so it's very intense physical energy for me. And getting really frustrated. This Mercury and Mars, when they're not coherent together, they're not resonating in a very good vibrational frequency, there's a lot of mental frustration, a lot of miscommunication. It's like miscommunication with the self. This is what I want to do. Yep. I didn't allow for a certain thing. And then the Mars in Gemini is going, let's do it. Let's go. Come on. What are you waiting for? And the next thing, I hadn't planned properly. I hadn't sort of, really considered my options. And I learned a $180 lesson in the process. So this inconjunct is going to be with us for some time, right through until mid next week, because these planets are both just coming out of a retrograde. So they're very slow moving in the sky. And we're just going to be stuck with that. We're integrating these two, but not on a conscious level, on an unconscious level. So be more aware, slow ride down. If your thoughts are going into the realm of fear-driven thoughts or lack or restriction or heavy or overburdened, then find a way to release that by going and doing some exercises or getting into nature, or just let go of what you're holding on to. The interesting thing about this inconjunct is Mercury is actually sextile the south node, and Mars is also quincunx or inconjunct the south node. So you'll see this pattern here. This is known as a yod, or a finger of God. Now, it's not a powerful one because this isn't actually a planet. This is a placement. It's a nodal point. But what it does is it takes some pressure off this inconjunct, which is like, well, you know what? Let go of the heaviness. If your mind is focused on things at the moment where you're overwhelming yourself and you're putting extra pressure on yourself and you're really being hard on yourself, all hallmarks of Capricorn, well, it's time to let go of the intensity, right? Now, how do we do that? Two things: objectivity and grounding. Grounding gives us discernment, but objectivity gives us clarity and insight. And the sun, having just passed over Pluto, big intense energies coming up to be integrated, right? Transformative energies. We just heard the news, hallelujah, even though it's part of the system and it's all by design, that Jacinda Ardern, one of the Hitlers during the last 2 years, with her extreme coercion and mandating and restriction, and her very charismatic way that she's saving everyone, the martyrdom type energy, she's just stepped down and resigned, or at least announced that. Now, my instant thought process is, okay, stuff's coming to light and she's getting the fuck out of the way, because if she's in a position of power and stuff comes to light, she's going to cop the full brunt. Whereas even though she's still full responsible for what she's done and how she's done it over the last few years, if she's not in that position of power, it depletes the amount of pressure that's going to be felt through her. So it's almost like a process of misdirection. So much stuff with Pluto moving into Aquarius is going to start coming to light, especially, like I've said in my last 2 videos ago, with Pluto activating that 0 degrees of Aquarius, which is where the grand conjunction was. So much stuff's coming to light. That's what Pluto does, is the purge energy, the purge. It's like, oh, this stuff's going to come into the collective consciousness. And she's just positioning herself to sort of deflect that out of the way. Because, time, and like we're talking about time, right, with the big clock, time will move on and people will have forgotten, right? If she's not the picture and the person always on the 6 o'clock news, oh yeah, that was that other woman, yeah, she's gone, right? So it's part of the design to sort of misdirection. That's what the system does, right? So anyway, stuff coming to light. Let's move. The sun moving into Aquarius. Happy birthday, you Aquarians out there. This is going to be an interesting Aquarius month. A breath of fresh air, absolutely, because when the sun comes into this fixed air sign, air is the element of the mind, right, and the thought process, but the fixed nature of that is the objectivity. It's like when you go outside on a day during the day where there's not a breath of wind, it's so eerily, peacefully still. Well, imagine that air realm represents perception, and now you are perceiving perfectly everything as it is. There's no turbulence. There's no mutability in that. It's very fixed. So it gives this clarity, insight, objectivity, big picture thinking. What do we need to do when we've got this Mercury-Mars inconjunct, the frustration, the heavy feelings, the action that's not aligned to that? It's more of like, it doesn't matter. We need objectivity. We need to rise above. We need to see the bigger picture. And we need to sort of understand that, you know what, it's not about this little thing I'm stuck on. If I look at the bigger picture, and we start to zoom out. And when the sun moves into Aquarius, we're going to pick up a trine to Mars and a sextile to Jupiter. So you're going to have air, fire, and air. Okay, so this heaviness and this energy is going to lift. And very quickly, as we move into Aquarius month, there's a slight asterisk or caveat to that, which I'll come to, and I'll just repeat that for those that haven't watched my previous videos. But we're going to start to see things shift, and then we'll move into the end of January, and Pluto and both Saturn and Pluto start to break ground and move out of their shadow, and we'll start to get some new energy coming through. So things will change. This too shall pass, right? Right now, this too shall pass. but it may take a week. It may take a little week for that aspect to sort of move. Mercury moves faster than Mars, so we're going to expect Mercury to move away from that aspect. But over the next 3 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday in particular, it's going to be a pretty heavy aspect. So slow down, take your time, cross your T's, dot your I's. And if it's getting too overwhelming, disconnect, detach, be like the butterfly, float off, let it go, go on to the next experience. You can always come back to it. If it's something really serious that needs resolving, if it's a problem you've got and the thinking is creating more of the same problem, then you must change your thinking, right? It's that old Einstein sort of quote, which says, you can't solve a problem with the same thinking that created it. This is Mercury in conjunct Mars. You can't solve a problem with the same thinking that created it. So what do you need to do? You need to let go, right? Sextile the South Node of the way you're thinking about it. That might mean, you know, let go of it all altogether. Give yourself a bit of space and time. And shortly, as we move into the new moon over the weekend, then the sun into Aquarius, things will shift. Things will start to shift. The light will start to come in. We'll start to get a bit more motivation. So the caveat, the asterisk, is that for those Aquarians born at the cusp, right at the very beginning of Aquarius, you are going to have Pluto start to interact with your sun. So that's going to be, you'll know this because you'll start to have the feeling of or desire for wanting change. And what that change is going to be, again, using the analogy at the beginning based on your own antennas and your own natal chart, you look to the house placement of your sun, will help you understand the area of life, the theme of change, but also the Leo house, right, in your chart. Why the Leo house? Because the sun rules Leo. So the sun is the Lord, right, of the Leo house. If this was your chart, it would be 5th house, creativity, romance, children, fun, your joy. So this changing of the self-image, perhaps to bring in more of that. If it were as a Pluto transformation, maybe this is a period of life where you create, literally have children of your own, and your role, the sun, completely transforms Pluto. And then now you are no longer just the individual known as Luke, you're Luke the father. You take on a new role. So that's just an example. So to know what type of change is coming for you, look to the house placement of your sun, look to the Leo house, and then start to bring in. There's obviously more to it than that, and I'm not going to go into it in a short video like this. But what I will say for those born at the very beginning of Aquarius is the truth shall set you free. And you need to align to your deepest thoughts and your deepest feelings, and you need to allow them expression. Okay? They will set you free. If you deny it, repress it, avoid it, escape from it, or hide it, it'll create conflict and challenge and crisis. So don't, just honor it. That it might mean that you need to start seeking external counsel, someone to talk to about how you're feeling, right? Again, if you need support in that, reach out. This is my jam. This is what I do. Now, the other asterisk is those born in the last 5 days of Aquarius. So that is from the 14th of February to the 19th of February. You guys, you're going to have Saturn energy coming through, and it's going to make a really quick pass of your sun. So it might be time to sort of just roll your sleeves up and get shit done. Take on the Saturn energy as it comes into the sun, become more responsible, be more pragmatic, get goal orientated, prioritize your responsibilities and obligations, accept the authority, become the author, take the control. Otherwise, it may be forced upon you. Issues with challenge, limitation, restriction, and authority may be, what happens over this period of time. If you're having some particular challenge and you're struggling, look at the way you're approaching it. Often challenge is overcome by changing our behavior. And that's what Saturn allows us to do, is to master ourselves. We no longer challenge that. Why? Because we recognize that our behavior is contributing to the challenge, and we overcome it by changing our behavior. So those are 2 asterisks. Don't know what happened then. It just had a little glitch in the matrix, but I was coming to the conclusion of this video. I hope you've liked it. If you did, make sure you hit the like button and please subscribe. Also, drop me a comment or a question. I get back to people. I'm trying to be more prompt this year. So if you need help, support, or guidance, reach out. All the details are below. See you guys real soon. Peace out.